Welcome to SEC After Dark. I'm Stephen Willis alongside Corey Burton. The new look SEC After Dark. I can't talk, it's so late at night. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking Blue Moon Light Sky. It's the Mick Ultra of the Blue Moon world. It's really good. I'm not doing a live taste test on this on air because I've had it before, and it's really good. It's really good. Like if it's been like blazing hot up here, and apologize for pushing us back, but you know the heat and football practice sometimes they don't mix very well, and I think at the start of practice we were able to start practice at 6 o'clock. It's a rough way to start.
So, how have you done the last year since we talked last Wednesday? It's been about a year, hasn't it?
It has been. I think I heard something about Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of news. Yeah, it might be a little bit of news.
They're doing something. I don't know. Let's fill me in, I guess.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and start talking about that. We'll start off with the Big 12. I know that we're going to do a little Big 12 after dark here. Because they were helping a conference try to poach one of their teams. That conference was the American of all conferences. And they're talking about shady, underhanded dealings between Texas and Oklahoma. And there's even a report from 2016 out tonight from the Iowa State AD saying that without Texas and Oklahoma, this league is doomed.
Well, yeah, it's doomed. He's right. Yeah, this is hilarious. You're getting mad because it's bad when you're getting when it keeps getting more and more interesting.
Yeah, and the great thing for SEC fans, since this is SEC After Dark, is we're in a position where we can kick back and enjoy this a little bit and watch everybody else scatter all over the place and panic and all that, and know that it doesn't affect us in the slightest. Kansas State?
No, West Virginia, I bet it was West Virginia.
I was thinking either West Virginia or TCU. Because there was the Big East history from back in the day. So probably along those lines. And also, I've heard rumors, I haven't heard it officially confirmed, that one team...
I bet they're pushing hard for somebody.
Texas and Oklahoma is absolutely trying to find home for all their friends. They're talking about helping everybody move, just to try to get out of the debt that's coming potentially their way. But I've heard that number. I want to know officially what that dissolve number is. When does the Big 12 cease to be a conference, or is the last person holding get to keep all the contracts?
You never know. They're going to dissolve really quick because I've heard, not to go Big Ten after dark, but I've heard that they're going after USC. So this thing is winding and turning, and there's all sorts of things, but they're coming after somebody. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's something that you will see. Let's see. Yeah, you'll see them. Different conferences go after guys you wouldn't normally expect because of the nature and the business of college football, how much it's changed, even in the last decade since we last did this. Now, after Texas and Oklahoma, and we talked about that, about the media rights and how that potentially could be set up with the Longhorn Network and integration in the SEC network with an overarching streaming service. Well, other conferences are going to have to match our 16. So that might be 22, that might be 24, that might be 26 teams that can pool their media rights together and get something similar to what we can get. But it really doesn't look good for the Big Ten. I mean, they've been on the downward spiral for a little bit, and this COVID situation last year is not going to help them out. The Pac-12, same situation. The Big 12 is a lame duck. The ACC has a terrible TV contract, and ESPN is apparently in bed with the American.
Yep, according to the letter, right?
Yeah.
It must be true.
Yeah.
It's if you're not an SEC school, it's bad. And if I'm Clemson or Florida State, I'm going, can I move? Hey, Commissioner Sankey, can we come too?
Yeah, I do have a question about that. We're at 16 after Texas and Oklahoma. Does anybody we add actually increase the TV share? Or have we hit a point of diminishing returns at this point?
No, I think you got room for four more markets, right? You got room for the Carolinas market that you're going to hit with possibly if you get Clemson. You still can hit the DC market and be good with if you go get like a Virginia or Virginia Tech. You can finish out the Florida market by you can grab the Panhandle by getting Florida State, and then you can figure out kind of where you're at. Maybe go try to get even further up the eastern seaboard and grab that New York market maybe, or grab that mid-Atlantic market with Maryland and try to lock that down maybe, or I don't know. Like it'd be interesting to kind of see what they do. Maybe the SEC goes and grabs West Virginia and kind of gets that Midwest market. So there's still some market shares to be had, and the SEC is not done for sure.
Jay Billis actually mentioned on his Twitter, I don't know how connected or whatever he's saying, I don't know how real this is, but he suggested an ACC-SEC merger to AL-NL, this bad boy, where you have the Atlantic Coast Conference and the SEC, as it said, under an umbrella under the SEC leadership.
Yeah, that would be, for the ACC, that would be in their best interest. I don't think that's going to happen. That's way too much fun there. They would have to drop some teams off at the loading dock, like Boston College, Syracuse, Pitt. Those teams would have to bounce. But I think if you grab Miami, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, NC State,
Virginia
Virginia
Tech, yeah,
Virginia Tech, and even possibly Notre Dame because they're in bed with the ACC sort of. They got like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That would be interesting. That would certainly cover the mega conference deal, but I don't know. I don't know how plausible that is, really.
I look at all the different scenarios, and I just picture that I think the SEC is kind of okay at 16 for now.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a mild revolt because of this move, because there's always going to be a mild revolt whenever a conference like the SEC competitively goes out that far in advance where you can't even see second place. There's going to be a revolt from the other conferences. I think that might slow things down a little bit. The Big 12 schools have to find new homes. That's a given. I don't see any way the Big 12 can survive. But I don't look for anything major move like Big 10 going out and getting USC and things like that, because I think they're going to take a wait and see look. I think the Big 10 is more than likely going to get Kansas and Iowa State and just stand pat and just eye the marketplace and see what happens.
Yeah, this thing is moving and shaking and all that stuff. They might go east and get some more and try to raid the ACC maybe. I don't know. The Big 10 is an interesting player here. That they, like I said, I've heard they're going after USC. I don't know how close they are to making that happen. I don't know where they stand with that, but there's something to be said to be coast to coast, right? With the Big 10, so they might claim that right. So, and the LA market for NIL is going to be it's prime pickings.
Yeah, and I think that the Big Ten and the SEC potentially, now this could be way down the road. This could be absolutely not right now. But there could be a little Warsaw Pact type situation with the Big Ten and the SEC kind of gobbling up ACC teams based on geography.
Yeah, I could see that. Like you take the Southeastern teams and roll them into the SEC, and then you take the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern teams and just merge them into the Big Ten, and let's say, all right, we got the from the middle over to the east covered in 2 conferences. Now, Pac-12, you take the rest from the Mid-America over, and let's go. Like take the best of the Mountain West, take Boise, take BYU, and let's roll. And
I think the first conference that Georgia and Ole Miss and even Texas were in was the original SIAA, which was about 30 teams, little confederation of schools. And it's kind of weird that it almost seems like we're moving back that direction after selling it off. The SEC eventually, one point was down at 10 teams and just slowly growing back up.
Yeah, in the late 70s, early 80s, it was like if you went above 10 teams, you're like that's unheard of, right? So
Mm.
you had the Big Eight, the Southwest Conference, the SEC, the Big Ten was actually 10 teams. The ACC formed, the Big East formed due to basketball. The Pac-10. It was a thing to have very very small conferences
Mm.
and just compete in bowl games. Now it's going back to the original. I mean, it's all cyclical. You know, it all comes full circle, and then now we're right back to let's just create like one big mega league, and we're going to see Power Five football, and it's going to be AFC NFC basically. It's going to be the NFL model. You're going to have all the Eastern teams, all the Western teams, and then you're going to have they might go to the NFL playoff model for all I know. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah,
kind of cool though.
yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I think it could be quite interesting.
Make
But
the SEC West truly West and go
yeah,
get USC.
yeah, the Power Five. I think they're going to just acquire teams and bring them into their thing, so they can eventually leave the MCA, govern themselves, and they actually already have governing relationships with all those schools. That's where I think we're headed, but I can't guarantee it.
Sankey will be the head man. He'll be
Yeah,
the Goodell. He'll be the Roger Goodell of this new Power Five league.
yeah,
That's where we're headed.
yeah,
That's where we're headed.
and Greg Sankey would be a true commissioner of college football, unlike a Mark Emmert who just kind of basically cashed a paycheck.
He cashes a paycheck and he punishes Southern Mississippi for Alabama's transgressions.
Yeah, it's completely not fair.
They have no teeth, the NCAA. They have no teeth whatsoever.
No, the last 2 years basically ended their relevance whatsoever. I'm curious to see what happens moving forward with like March Madness, because the side effect that people aren't realizing is this super conference thing that we're going and the way we're breaking up and the Power Five breaking away is March Madness is going to go too. The NCAA is probably going to cease to be an effective governing body, and they'll mainly be a D2, D3 type school type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, FCS will be the premier division within NCAA, and then you'll have Power Five, and then Group of Five. I don't know where they go. I don't know which direction they go because you have schools like the MAC conference. You have some of the lower American Conference teams, Conference USA, Sun Belt. What happens to those schools? Do they stay NCAA? Do they break off and form a lower division within the Power Five group? And it's kind of like the high school model where you have like classification, Power Five classification, Group of Five classification, and they just do their own thing. Like,
Yeah,
are we headed that way? I mean, that
yeah.
would be the best bet for them.
I'm absolutely curious about how everything looks moving forward, especially with college football. But I'm interested to see the basketball aspect as well, the baseball aspect as well. And that leads us into our second segment. We're going to talk a little bit about Texas and Oklahoma and literally what it means for the SEC. We've talked about hypotheticals of what's going on. But I was sitting here thinking about this the other day. And with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, and everything's going to move around in the SEC West. You're looking at Texas, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Arkansas in one division in baseball. It's 5 out of 8 teams.
Mm-hmm. That's wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
The SEC has no excuse not to win the national championship every year when you're looking at that, and then you throw in Vanderbilt on the other side. Um, you're getting pretty sporty, and then you can't count out South Carolina. They've got a really good baseball program.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball wise, you look at Florida, Vanderbilt, LSU, Ole Miss, basically everyone except Georgia, in basketball.
They flash. They flash, to be fair.
They flash in like February, and then
Yeah.
they go back into the tank. Unfortunately, that's life as Georgia. But when your entire basketball tradition is Dominique Wilkins, I don't have much say in the basketball world. But I think it's going to be fun to watch the other sports kind of navigate this whole thing and see where it goes. I mean, it'd be a true tournament of champions, right? You got to run through the Dukes and North Carolinas, and no more Mount St. Mary's in the first round. No more Belmont in the first round. You gotta lace them up and go against Duke, right?
Yeah, I foresee like the top 130, the football subdivision, the FBS, to have their own tournament where basically half of those teams make it into the basketball field. So your first round game might be against the 65 ranked team, but that could be Ole Miss. Typically, that would be a bubble team.
Now I got a question for you here. The Big East did it with basketball. Do you have conferences that add schools for specific sports only? Like, could the Pac-12 add Gonzaga for basketball? Could they add like a Cal State Fullerton for baseball only to get them up to the upper echelon?
I think if you have a viable network, that would work. If you have the Big Ten network and you want to bring Gonzaga in, or Gonzaga in to do it, sorry. Blair
Gonzaga.
Yeah. Blair's flashing in my head right now.
Yeah. Shout out to Blair Johnson.
Yeah. And if they have a functional network, you can get some value off of somebody like Gonzaga. You can get some value off of Kansas basketball, although they're about to go on tons of probation. So Kansas isn't the marquee. The timing is terrible for Kansas right now.
Screw them. They screw me in basketball every year in the March Madness pool. So yeah, screw them. The hell.
Yeah. So a team like that, the Pac-12, if they could quit sitting on their thumb and see what's going on, they should add some baseball only members. Bring Fullerton in. Bring Pepperdine in. These former names that people recognize, Long Beach State, bring them in.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, stuff like that. You're going to have to think outside the box to compete with an an SEC brand, where like Alabama and Oklahoma in softball. That's going to be a marquee matchup. That might make it to ESPN, living on the mothership.
Georgia Oklahoma was a hell of a baseball game in the World Series. I think they ended up losing out, but I mean Georgia has a great softball program, so they'll compete. Oklahoma obviously has a great softball program. Texas has a great softball program, but yeah, I would love to see like the Big East. The Big East had like 30 members, but they only had like 10 football members, and they're like Georgetown plays like Division III football, like Villanova plays they play FCS football. Seton Hall, I don't even know if they have football. St. John's doesn't have football. Like the Big East is like a basketball, baseball conference, right? They have all these teams in them. They're like, man, that's Big East, but then they play like FCS football. Yeah. Villanova's a force in the FCS football, by the way, in the Colonial. So they're
pretty campus, fun. By the way. I've been to Nova. I lived up just north of Philadelphia for a couple of years, and Villanova's a nice campus.
For it being in Philadelphia, definitely.
But it's not really in Philadelphia. That's where they get you. It's such on the outskirts. It's like saying South Brentwood is Nashville.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So I mean it's pretty nice. But I'm looking forward. Like Texas won the Directors Cup this year, and pretty much if you're listening to this, you're probably 35 and under, and you have never seen a world where Stanford did not win the Directors Cup until this year when Texas won it. That team is coming to the SEC, and I believe an SEC team has never won it because we don't play enough sports. That's an important distinction whenever that people talk Directors Cup. We intentionally don't play enough sports, just so the money is in places that do what you need to do. But
yeah, I mean that's why these programs like softball and women's basketball, tennis, that's why these programs can thrive so well, because we're not splitting it up between 30 sports. We're splitting it up between like 16 sports.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really neat to see all this coalesce. I'm having a great time. I love realignment. The last time they went through this realignment, me and you were at Rivals, and we were sitting there on the computer and we were following everything.
We were sitting about this close.
Yeah. Following Chip Brown and all the rumors from all the different leagues and everything going on. And it was a ton of fun. And a lot of the baseline for our knowledge of what's going on was developed then because nobody had that knowledge before then. So back then they were actually doing real reporting, everything going on. Everything was piling on the next. Now we can't find out what the number of teams it's going to take to dissolve the Big 12. You know,
because
that little piece of news would have been instantly out 10 years ago.
yeah, but now it's like there's so much stuff out. You don't know what's real, what's not real.
Mm,
You know, with the explosion of social media, it changed the game as far as reporting goes. And you know, a lot of it, you know, about half of it really, really good way. Like we get news a little bit faster. We get, you know, we can get to these sources faster, and these people have easier access to. Um, but then again, it also you have a lot of lazy and irresponsible journalism as well, where people want to be the first now, and they know they have to be really, really fast. So I feel like half the time they just make up 3/4 of the story and put it out there and just let people run with it and then figure it out later. Where it used to be, you better had it you have better have it figured out before you put it out, or your ass is out of a job.
yeah, now you have to be first. It doesn't matter if it's right. Everybody said whenever I was coming up, you know, going through Yahoo, even Ole Miss, whatever I was doing, you need to be right first, and then you want to be first next. So if you can get that right order and go first, that's the win. But now there's nothing to being first, because what you're seeing is completely going to be inaccurate. You might have one nugget of truth in there, and then 5 things that's completely inaccurate, and you just have to go through and figure out what those between stories, which ones are the nuggets of truth wherever they're coming from. It's bizarre.
Well, and you also got to understand that like people are racing to be first to put this stuff out. This story's like unfolding, right? And people are putting out little nuggets, and we don't know what's true, and it's all based on conjecture and hearsay, and you don't know what's what because nothing is out there yet. There's like no resolution to report. It's all just rumor. He said, she said. Well, they put this letter out. We don't know what team it was with the American Conference that was flirting with them. We'll find that out later, I'm sure, but we don't know that yet. That information has not been made available. And now this thing's a huge story, but it's an incomplete story. And it's like you're shoving all these Legos out there, and then like you're withholding a bunch of Legos so you can't finish your project, but you want to present it as an incomplete project, and that's kind of what journalism is. And there's no accountability either. And I know you did a whole podcast on this, but you know, I think these journalists should be held accountable when they make mistakes. They should have to answer to that stuff. Like there should be, before you really are considered a news source on something, there should be some credentials that you have to present, or that you have to have for people to take you seriously, and for people to put your stuff out there as news versus just, hey, this is what I think, this is what a friend of mine told me, because it's nothing unless you're verified as somebody that's a reliable source.
Yeah, credibility used to be the thing that was built up, and the accountability was from your editor and his boss, and there was 3 or 4 layers between that and the money. So it was never really touching. You could do your job without the money interfering. Now the money's sitting right next to it. So you can put this story out, and the question is, does this information make me money? Not is this right, not is this correct, not is this truthful. Does this article make me money?
Does it give me clicks? All people care about is clicks. They don't even care. They don't even care what the words are on the page. It just clicks, right? Like you have these lazy reporters that work for these newspapers that, you know, that's a dying business, and they just exactly they make up these stories, and they make up like they pick out the tiniest shred of something, and they try to make a story out of it and try to get clicks. Like there was a story about Darion Kendrick at Georgia. Israel and I were talking about this the other day, where, you know, he got some like minor violation downtown in Athens, and he got exonerated of it. And, you know, it really wouldn't have, you know, really wasn't a big deal. And then there was an article that came out, and it was like front page AJC, arrested Georgia player, you know, something like that. And it's just like, come on now.
Yeah.
Like that's just lazy. There's no story. Like people are pursuing stories that aren't stories. They just want to pursue just something that they can make a headline out of. Right.
Yeah. They have in their mind an outcome, something they're looking for, a buzzword. And then after that, the story's already written. It doesn't matter what actually happened. It's like Georgia player. Okay, I'm going to look for a Georgia player being arrested. Okay, we'll put this in. It's going to go to the front page. We're going to write a story. If you actually read the story, you would see that, there's not a lot.
There's nothing to it.
There's nothing there. But the headline, since we're in this Twitter world, is what people are reading, and that's how the sensationalism basically infects.
Yeah. Facebook gets me with this all the damn time. I'm such a sucker sometimes. I'm like, he opened up about his time with Bill Belichick. And I read it and it's like, yeah, Belichick was awesome. Yeah. And I'm like,
yeah, it's like, oh, you guys are terrible.
It's like, really? I clicked in there and read that. I must have been really bored.
Yeah. And you know what? It's gotten to almost to the point where print journalism is not really, it's definitely not what it was. It's hard to read. It's hard to know what's true. Because for the first time in anybody's lives in the last, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years, the question, everything you read, the question has to be, what is the motivation for writing this?
Yeah.
What does this get you?
Yeah, exactly. And it used to be journalists took pride in writing articles about things. You know, they took pride in digging into their sources and researching topics that they were assigned and putting out a good article. Well-known award-winning journalists, people used to subscribe to papers. Even when they started going online, there's still some of those journalists left. People would subscribe to the New York Times or Washington Post or whatever the publication to read these people's articles because they know they put a lot of time and effort into them, and you're going to get a really good, informative article. That doesn't happen very much anymore. It's all about just getting words on a page. You read it. There's no substance. There's no urgency. That's why print media is dying, because there's no urgency to actually read the article. You can just skim the headlines and make your own judgments. And that's really what the article is anyway. It's just a headline.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, that's why podcasts are growing, I guess, because it's, people can expand on stuff. It's like the new way of, like, kind of like what we're doing. We're expanding on stuff, like, right?
Yeah, you can look people in the eye.
Yeah, we can look people in the eye. You see our faces.
Yeah.
And, we're going to be held accountable. If I say something stupid, I'm probably going to get roasted on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's the way it works. Now, and also, like, in the Twitter thing and the canceling thing, I'm of the opinion that in order to be canceled on Twitter, you have to choose to allow yourself to be canceled on Twitter. We don't do anything nearly that is divisive enough to actually get canceled. So you have to choose to get canceled. If there's going to be people that disagree with what you say, there's going to be people that don't like you. That's all part of it. The fact that oversensitivity to that from people that have no business doing it. Yeah, I mean, if you have 20,000 followers, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And if you go and sway your opinion and your views and your viewpoints based off of Twitter followers, that's a sad place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're pandering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just, that's as simple as it put. You're pandering, right? You're trying to appeal to followers and what you think that they want you to be, instead of just being yourself and saying what you want to say. And as long as you stay within certain parameters, you're safe, right? I mean, it's actually pretty easy. Don't say anything racist. Don't say anything homophobic, and you're fine, right?
Yeah. Be a decent person. That is the only thing you have to do on Twitter is be a good person.
Yeah, be a decent person, be funny, and keep it clean, right? And be a decent human being. Have compassion for people. Like, treat people with respect. Because even, like, people are going to treat you with respect even in disagreement. Like, people are going to disagree with you respectfully if you're a decent human being. If you're a piece of garbage, they're going to treat you like a piece of garbage, and they're going to probably try to come after you. So be a decent human. Don't get canceled.
Yeah, that's the message from us today. Be a decent human being on Twitter. Do not post in a game thread. Do not Yeah.
Nothing good comes in a game
Yeah,
thread. No,
do not
no.
post in a game thread. There's just no reason to do it. All it does is set yourself up for some kind of an emotional response that is going to make you look terribly. So just do not post in a game thread. Stay off social media. Stay off message boards during the game. After the game, go in there and post and say what you want to say, but do not do it during the game. Also, my favorite message board guy is the one that midway through the first quarter, oh, fire everybody, and then you come back and you win the game by 3-4 touchdowns. That's probably my favorite message board poster.
I love those. Kirby ain't got it. And
Yeah.
then we 50 burger them and everybody jumps on. I love the people that jump all over that guy or that person that does that. That's the best.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
that absolutely is.
It's like, come on, man.
We got off topic a little bit. We're talking about Texas and Oklahoma. I asked Kyle, I forget his last name. They from Texas. Came from
Kyle Rudolph?
Longhorn. Yeah, I wish. Who is most unexpected rivalry that he hopes develops over the course of?
Let me see if I can predict what he said
Okay.
because I haven't heard this. Arkansas.
No, that's a rivalry that's going to happen because there's history there. But he said Georgia. He was looking forward to Texas playing Georgia. Bevo and Uga getting into it.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. Even though Uga was on the wrong end of that was kind of cool. That's a fun clip to show.
Yeah, it's a really great clip. And he mentioned that. I think Oklahoma and Arkansas needs to become a rivalry. You know, they've only played 14 times in their history.
Really?
Yeah, for that proximity, they've only played 14 times. I think Arkansas has played Tulsa more than that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, they need a good opponent there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some things develop. I'm looking forward to seeing a big time rivalry develop between LSU and Texas and LSU and Oklahoma. I'm looking forward to see what the Mississippi schools how they do it. It is who's going to be a bigger rival with Ole Miss? Is it going to be Texas or Oklahoma? I'm looking forward to seeing that develop. I don't know exactly how that's going to develop. It's we don't know because there's not really a true rivalry with either, but there will be one that develops within the division.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing if Georgia and Alabama can develop some sort of consistent rivalry with them moving over to the East, possibly. I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm looking, I can't wait to see Arkansas finally have somebody they can be rivals with. I think it'll help. I think it'll help their recruiting. I know people say otherwise, but being in the same conference, playing Texas every year, and knowing that you're in the same brand, they're already competing with Texas. It just brings more credibility to Arkansas, and they'll win a few more of those battles that they don't win because Texas is in the league. And so I think if I'm Arkansas, I use that to my advantage. I'm going to get more exposure in the state of Texas than I got with just A&M in the conference.
Yeah, and Texas A&M to Arkansas, long distance there. But now you have Missouri up above. You have Oklahoma a little bit to the west. You have Texas down a little bit south. You got something you can work with. And like I said, I'm proud for them.
Yeah, I am too. I'm happy for Arkansas. I think they need that. They needed something like that because they recruited really well when they were Southwest Conference and they were competing with all those guys. So they come over to the SEC, and that's kind of when it got funky with them because they started competing with these SEC schools and they started kind of dipping into the Southeast, and really it's like they kind of got messed up with their whole recruiting plan. And then Brett Bielema happened, and Chad Morris happened, and they really went in the tank. But I think they got the right guy with Pittman. They're doing a lot better recruiting wise than they were. They still got some room to grow, and I think they will. Kendall Briles is, he's a big name down in Texas. You get him established. If he stays, I think people are just worried about him leaving. If he can commit to Arkansas and stay as a coordinator, which I think he should, they'll be pretty good. They're physical. They're already physical. They play a great brand of football, and I would give Arkansas a long, hard look if I was a recruit right now, because I like the way they play football.
Yeah, it's getting to the point in time though where they need to win games.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
They need to start winning more games than they lose. This year is the last year they can kind of use the "we're still rebuilding" excuse. But next year, for sure, they better start competing.
Yeah. And you heard from the athletic director again and from Sam Pittman they're expecting the number one hardest schedule in college football this year, which they had last year, and it's like that's just the whole SEC West. You're going to have to get over that and quit making that a bragging point and just go win those games.
Just play your schedule,
Uh-huh.
play your games, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to get any easier, right? Your
No.
crossover games, not going to get any easier. I mean, if you draw Vanderbilt, that might ease your schedule up like a half a degree, a half a percent. But Kentucky's good now. South Carolina will be good soon. Georgia. Florida's Florida. Tennessee's back on the rise again. The Mississippi Stools are on the rise and looking for some bright futures. Hopefully Kiffin stays with Ole Miss. Missouri's looking pretty good over there. And then you add Texas and Oklahoma. Texas is what they are right now. They're struggling too, but you have to think they come in the league, they're not going to struggle.
Yeah, the same thing I asked Kyle Carpenter there. This question. I asked him this question. Let's drop you down in 1985. Oklahoma, Texas, Red River Shootout, Barry Switzer, Darrell Royal, the whole 9 yards, and I tell you that 2 of the Big 8 and 3 of the Southwest Conference are going to be in the SEC.
Yeah, I would say you're crazy.
Yeah.
I would say you're nuts,
Uh-huh.
right? I would say you're nuts because, it's the SEC was truly the Southeastern Conference, right? It was truly that little that little chunk of the state or the country, and now it's expanded almost into the Southwest. So, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like it's growing, it's sprouting, and I'm here for it, right?
Yeah, and the Southwest Conference, you probably got the top 3 schools with Texas A&M, Texas, and Arkansas. The Big 8, you obviously got one of the top school, if not the top school in Oklahoma.
The top school.
Yeah, and then you probably got number 4 with Missouri because number 2 would have been Nebraska and number 3 would probably have been Colorado.
Yeah, and Nebraska sucks.
Yeah, yeah. You wouldn't nobody would trade with Nebraska right now.
No, not a soul.
Yeah.
Not a soul. Like I don't want any part of Nebraska. The Big Ten doesn't want any part. I have some Big Ten friends that I do illegal motion with on every Tuesday night. They're both they're both Wisconsin people. They both graduated from Wisconsin, and the other one grew up an Iowa fan. So they're Big Ten people, and they hate Nebraska. They want Nebraska out.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm dead serious about this. If you're the president of Nebraska, you should call Greg Sankey. It doesn't geographically fit. Everything's a problem. But I'm not saying the SEC would take them, but I think that's a phone call you have to make.
Yeah, or call the dude at the Pac-12 and try to renew that rivalry with Colorado. Get out of the Big Ten. You're a fish out of water. Get out of the Big Ten.
Yeah,
Like you have nothing in the Big Ten in your face. You have no natural rivals in the Big Ten. Get out of there.
Yeah, well, it could change with you bring Kansas and Iowa State in, but then it's just a chance for those 2 schools to beat up on Nebraska too.
Yeah,
Get some revenge from back in the Big 8 days.
God Almighty, Iowa State's good, man.
Yeah,
Nebraska don't want any part of Iowa State. And it was funny, like not to go Nebraska after dark here, but or not to go Husker Illustrated. Shout out to Greg Peterson. They tried to troll Iowa, and Iowa goes, "Yeah, kind of like the last 6 times you came," and they put the scores up of the last 6 games. And Iowa was like, "Really? You mean the last 6 games you played against us were all L's? Okay, cool."
Yeah. I know this podcast, and I'm sorry, it's turning into Nebraska After Dark, but I do have a point I would like to make about Nebraska. I think Scott Frost went to Nebraska and quit being the Scott Frost he was at UCF and at Oregon before him and tried to be Tom Osborne 2.0. And that just wouldn't work. That would never work.
you gotta stay true to yourself. Like he had roots in Oregon. Like he grew up as a coach in Oregon, right, under Chip Kelly. Like be that guy, right? He came down to UCF, had really good success being a tempo air raid spread, whatever version of the air raid spread that was. But he had great success doing that. And then he gets to Nebraska and he's like, goes brain dead. I don't know. Like I guess he felt the pressure of like trying to be Tom Osborne and trying to be traditional Nebraska, and that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You can't recruit like Nebraska did when you were in school as a quarterback, right? Nebraska get everybody in the breadbasket of the country because Nebraska was a brand. They're not anymore.
Same goes for Tennessee.
Same goes for Tennessee. Like Tennessee, if you try to and Michigan, like these schools are trying to be like General Neyland, Tennessee, or the Michigan man, Bo Schembechler Wolverines. Like you can't when you hire these guys, you got to let them do what they do, and if they do that with Josh Heupel, they will be successful.
Yeah.
If they let Josh Heupel be Josh Heupel, they will be successful if they don't get in his way. Scott Frost, you got to be Scott Frost, right? He's a good coach deep down inside. He's a terrible coach at Nebraska. He's a terrible fit at Nebraska because he is not what he's been training himself to be.
Which is a West Coast coach, even though he grew up in Nebraska. Yeah.
But he grew up as a coach on the West Coast. So why just recruit your quarterback? There's a million of them out there. Get you somebody that you like. Like he could recruit it. Like Scott Frost could take a Mackenzie Milton and make him an All-American quarterback. Like Mackenzie Milton wasn't some heralded prospect coming out of high school, right? He was good, but he wasn't like Trevor Lawrence. Like Scott Frost doesn't need a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields at Nebraska to compete. He needs a high 3-star, low 4-star guy that can throw the ball, a guy that's accurate, and he needs some guys that can make plays. Like Mike Leach has it figured out. Like Will Rogers, what was he coming out of high school?
Yeah, he was a 3-star.
He was a 3-star, right? He was one of the best quarterbacks in the conference.
Yeah, and he's just a quarterback that ran the air raid in high school. That is why the seamless transition is there. But yeah, it's nothing special.
Find you a guy that fits your system, and win with that. It's okay.
Yeah, I think that Scott Frost would have trouble signing somebody like Jordan Ta'amu at Nebraska, but at Oregon, and at Central Florida, he would absolutely sign that quarterback.
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, he would. So I don't know where the disconnect is. Like I don't know what's going on there. But maybe Nebraska just needs to go on and fire him so they can help him out.
Yeah, and there's a chance he's going to.
He's gone after this year. I just don't see it. I just don't see it improving. There, it's bad. It's bad. He's made it worse.
Yeah,
he's trying to be something he's not.
And it doesn't help the way that they handled the COVID thing and just got all the Big Ten schools to gang up against them. They're completely isolated. And now with the death of the Big 12, there's just nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, everybody hates them. Everybody in their division hates them with a passion. Iowa fans hate them. Wisconsin is starting to hate Nebraska worse than they hate Minnesota. That would be like Alabama hating Missouri worse than they hate Auburn.
Yeah, it's really a sad thing that's just developing up there. But thank you for tuning in for Big Ten After Dark. Before we get out of here, I do want to talk about a little bit of camp storylines. I'm looking at really two things. One is the LSU quarterback competition, if there is one.
Why is it the competition again?
Because Miles Brennan is going to get reps at the beginning, and Coach O is known for screwing this up. I've seen it with my own eyes. If it's not obvious, he's going to make the wrong choice. And the Ole Miss defense, if they can just be the 80th ranked defense in the country, if they can be the 60th ranked defense in the country, it's a 10-win ball club.
That's doable. right?
Mm-hmm.
Can Matt Corral, for speaking of Ole Miss, like for
Mm-hmm.
Matt Corral, he's got to have those game like his ceiling and his floor. I think right now are really far apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like his floor is like the 6 interception game against Arkansas, and obviously his ceiling is All American status. Those other big games that he had, like against Alabama, where he threw 1,400 touchdowns and 6,000 yards. He's got to close that gap from the floor up, right? He's got to like he can't have disastrous games like he had
Mm-hmm.
last year. Like I felt like against Arkansas, he fell apart, and he can't like for Ole Miss to be good, he can't do that because you know that's another thing. Like there's been situations where he put the defense in bad situations, and there's been times where he's done that, and there's sometimes you can't hold it against the defense because they're only they give up a 15-yard drive. Most cases if you give up 15 yards on a drive, you're in good shape. But in some cases they gave up 15 yards on a drive and it was a touchdown. So, Matt Corral's got to be better, more consistent, I guess, less ebb and flow, and just kind of more of an even keel at a high level. And his dips have got to be like he throws 2 interceptions versus 6. Like we need to look back on this season and say we need to look at his game by game numbers and say, okay, he had a disastrous game here. He threw 2 interceptions. Not, oh my God, he was 9 of 31 for 61 yards and 6 interceptions and a fumble. Like we can't have those games from him.
Yeah, if you look at things though, Matt Corral threw 11 interceptions in 2 games. That's a ridiculous stat and that's horrible. But Ole Miss had the ball with 3 minutes to go in the game in both of those with a chance to win. That blows my mind because if you throw 6 interceptions, you should be losing by 35.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the fact that Ole Miss was still in that game tells you what you need to know about this team as a whole, right? They probably would have won by 3 touchdowns had he just cut those interceptions in half.
Yeah, and obviously me and Corey both are Team Max Johnson when it comes to the LSU quarterback controversy. Miles Brennan, I do think, is going to get some reps and what's going on, but I do expect Max Johnson to win that.
Who starts at quarterback at Tennessee? I'm hearing Joe Milton.
Really?
Yeah, I'm hearing good things. I'm hearing things about Joe Milton. I shouldn't be, but I'm hearing things about Joe. I'm Team Harrison Bailey, if you ask me. That's my guy.
Central Florida, with Josh Heupel, he has no problems playing 2 quarterbacks and having a running quarterback and a normal between the 20s quarterback. So short yardage, you might see Joe Milton come in. You might see him on the goal line. But I think Harrison Bailey's going to win that job.
I think that guy should be hooker, and then Bailey should be like the full-time quarterback.
Yeah, and
I think the hooker should be
the big question they're going to have is the other skill positions because at quarterback they have talent there.
Mm-hmm. They do. It's going to be interesting. They're going to there's going to be some guys that obviously step up just because, but we're never going to hear of them. They got a Wes Welker type kid from Brentwood. His name is Walker Merrill. He's pretty good. Like he can jump. He's got some ability. You're going to see some freshmen step into this thing and contribute. So I'm curious to see what they do. But style of play, it's going to be the no-name offense, right? And they're going to produce some numbers.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I think they open up college football for the SEC that first Thursday night on September 2nd against Bowling Green. I'm looking forward to seeing what that offense looks like, and I think that Tennessee people are going to just be taken aback at the speed of that, going from Jeremy Pruitt to what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's going to be like Mississippi State is what it's going to be like, right? They're going to be I don't think they're going to come out of the gates with an upset, but they're going to be pretty terrible for most of the year, and then you're just going to see it at some point. You're going to see them drastically improve. And they're going to play a lot better down the stretch. They're going to find some sort of identity. Obviously, offensively, we know what that identity is probably going to be. Defensively, they're going to find some sort of thing they're good at and hang their hat on it. Like Mississippi State, what they really did on defense is they found out that, hey, we got actually pretty good defensive line and we're pretty stout against the run. So they capitalize on that, right? And they were way more competitive down the stretch. It didn't necessarily translate into the win-loss record that they probably wanted, but like now we're talking about Mississippi State being a team that's like improving. It's going to be competitive. Maybe not win as many games this year, but they're going to be extremely competitive, and looking forward to what they can do in the future. For Tennessee, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. For Mississippi State, you're looking for 6. Just get to 6. That's all you care about this year. Mike Leach is a year 3 coach traditionally. So just get to 6 this year, get the extra game involved, and see what happens. Now, I'm curious about the quarterback position at Texas A&M.
Haynes King, I'm thinking Haynes King. He's the guy.
Yeah, but this is my question in Jimbo style of offense, because like somebody like Jameis Winston has, ran that. Kellen Mond had a lot of athletic ability and he did it, but he didn't do it to the level of Jameis Winston. Haynes Keen's an athlete. He's one of the faster players on the team. Is Jimbo Fisher going to become basically a Dan Mullen-like with Nick Fitzgerald? I don't think so. They're going to run that same style offense. So they're just going to ask him to throw the ball and make the decisions that are required. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do it.
All right. No offense to Jameis Winston, but if Jameis Winston can function in that offense intelligence-wise, anybody can. Like Jameis Winston, he's not all there.
He had physical gifts though.
He did.
So it might have been a one read pass, but the man had a cannon for an arm and the ability to play the game. He was very good in the crunch time. But if you remember that Florida State team, they were down almost most of the second halves that year, and Jameis Winston just kept pulling them out of the fire before they ran into a Nick Marshall Auburn team.
And they ended up winning.
Yeah,
they ended up. But that was one of those games where Auburn had it until they didn't.
Yeah.
Auburn probably lost that game more than Florida State won that one. But, he's going to pull out some of these Jameis Winston tricks out of the bag and say, hey, let's go get it, right? And some of the things that Kellen Mond did well, I think Haynes King can do. I think athletically, he's gonna put you in some better situations than Calzada can. With his running ability, his ability to move within the pocket, I think it's going to separate. Jimbo's going to be like, man, we can figure this thing out. He can make some plays with his feet. We've got Wiedemeyer to bail him out. We've got Isaiah Spiller in the backfield to bail him out. We can do some things with Haynes King. There's some leeway with his athletic ability. He doesn't have to be a polished passer or a guy that can make progression reads. He can be a guy that can make a 1 or 2 read play and pull it down. He's a guy that can check it down to the back, and we're still in good shape. They can play some defense now. They're better up front than they were a year ago. So they've got some things going in their favor around him that they don't he doesn't have to be the guy like Jameis was. He doesn't have to be the guy like they want to kill him on to be. So that's why I think that athletic ability is going to be the separator here, and Calzada just isn't what Calzada can't do exactly what Haynes King can do. That's how I see it. It may play out totally different in camp. There might be some pressure situations that he puts him in that Calzada just takes this thing and runs away with it. That wouldn't surprise me either. But if you pressed me right now, I'm saying Haynes King.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I honestly, with either one of them, I don't see either one of them being able to beat Alabama. And that's kind of the goal at this point for the Texas A&M program, is getting over that hump. And next year it's going to be beating Oklahoma or beating Texas.
But you want to talk camp storylines? Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does Bryce Young and Bill O'Brien mix? Like, does John Robinson have the same production as Najee Harris? I was having a discussion with a friend of mine about this. Saying
no, he doesn't.
He's an underrated back, which he's got some talent, but he's not Najee Harris.
Yeah, all around back, Najee Harris might be the best that's come through there.
Well, Najee Harris was your if I'm using a baseball analogy here, he is their Albert Pujols. He could do everything.
Yeah, he's a 5-tool guy.
Yeah,
there's your baseball.
There you go. How do they John Mechie is not Jalen Waddle, is not Devontae. Like, how do they replace those guys?
Yeah.
Right?
And Slade Bolden is not Jalen Waddle. Now, he played some slot last year, but if he's the number 2 guy that's supposed to take pressure off of John Mechie, that's not going to do it. And then you're dealing with a sophomore quarterback that didn't get much work last year at all.
But
He's
they still have a
extremely
seven-figure
talented.
NIL deal.
Yeah, he's extremely talented, but he didn't get the fourth quarter reps that even Mac Jones got before him, and before him Tua Tagovailoa. And you're going to ask this guy to come in and be ready. Here's Miami, go with Bill O'Brien. You don't know how that's going to turn out. I'm not saying that that game is going to be a disaster. I'm not saying that. But there's questions that need to be answered. That's the first chance that they have to answer them. And Miami's a pretty damn good team.
I mean, you got to figure out how to contain De'Aaron King over there. Now, I don't think Miami brings a ton of firepower, but De'Aaron King can equalize a lot of things for you. And Rhett Lashley is, for all the faults he had at Auburn,
he knows how to deal with a Saban defense.
He knows how to deal with the Saban defense. He's finally, like, Diaz has finally let him do his thing, and he's been really good for Miami. He's found a home in Miami. So Miami's a team that's actually pretty good. I didn't think Diaz would last there, but he's hanging on. He got a great transfer in De'Aaron King, and they're pretty sporty. So Alabama's got their work cut out for them. They've got we got to pump the brakes on, like, anointing them the national champions because they're Alabama. Like, at some point, I keep saying this, at some point, this coaching turnover has got to bite them in the ass at some point.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a year.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And with the one-time transfer rule coming into effect, you have to keep that whole roster happy. Yeah. For Nick Saban, who's like 69 years old or 70 years old, it's got to wear on you because of the extra stuff besides coaching football that he's going to have to deal with.
It seems like he's embracing it, though. It seems like he's way. I feel like he's way less cranky now than he was last year or 2 years ago. Right? Like 2 years ago, he's like grumbling at everybody. Now he's like cracking jokes and having fun with all this stuff.
Yeah, like, when does he become Bobby Bowden taking a nap at 2:00 every day? When does he become that guy?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. That's just not in his personality. That's just not in his personality. But yeah, he got a lot of questions to answer for Alabama. I wouldn't be so quick to say that they're a shoo-in to win the division. I wouldn't say that right now that they're a slam dunk to beat Texas A&M, to beat Ole Miss, to beat Auburn. Like, there's that league is competitive. That division is competitive. You've got, if LSU somehow figures out and just gets lucky, like blind squirrel type stuff, and picks the right quarterback, they could be pretty sporty. Ole Miss, you know what they're going to bring to the table. They're pretty explosive, dynamic. Arkansas is physical. They're going to pound you. They're not exactly a shoe-in. They're probably going to win that game, but they're it's not a roll into Fayetteville and 50-piece them anymore. Like, that's not Arkansas anymore. Mississippi State, they're gonna give you fits with the air raid, right? Mm-hmm. You got to stay on your toes because it's totally different. Auburn, we just don't know with Brian Harsin. He's had a good track record at Boise State. They've got some of the right pieces. They've got Tank Bigsby, and surely Mike Bobo can do something for Bo Nix. So you don't know what's going to happen there. And then who am I leaving out? Did I leave out anybody? I didn't leave out anybody in the West, did I?
I don't think so.
No. They play Florida, which, Florida being Florida, they can still sneak up a bit. Florida and Alabama are the exact same scenario right now.
Yeah.
Like, they've got a lot of firepower to replace. So it's going to be tough for both of those schools.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan Mullen, for watching the show. He used square peg and round hole multiple times during media days to talk about what he's going to do with Emory Jones, which means I expect the Nick Fitzgerald offense at Florida this year.
Yeah, I do too. And, Dan reached out in the chat and, said he goes under the name Darth Mullen, like we don't know who he is.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you're very sad, Dan. Come on,
Dan,
just
if,
do
if
it.
you're hearing this, send me a pair of Jordans.
Yeah, yeah. Which we know you are hearing this.
Send
So
me a pair of Jordans. I'll give you my address later.
yeah,
Send me a pair of Jordans.
yeah.
So
Hit us up on Twitter. The
yeah.
Stephen Willis.
Speaking of teams that have teams in Twitter and hitting us up, I was I was trolling around on Twitter when the Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Cleveland Guardians. Um, before I realized there was historical and structural architectural significance to that name, I was, obviously like, what the hell? This is the weakest thing I've ever heard. But it has significance to Cleveland, so I'm like, it's cool. Still kind of weak, but yeah, it's cool. It's
Yeah,
cool.
I think Guardians is what an individual service member is called in the Space Force.
Yeah,
That's what they pick for that. Like a soldier and a sailor and a Marine, you got a Guardian.
Yep, you got a Guardian. So, and you got Guardians playing baseball in Cleveland. So there was a minor league team, the Burlington Sock Puppets.
Okay.
They came out and said when they came out and retweeted the announcement from the Indians and said, "What a silly name." And I responded in that thread, and the Carolina Disco Turkeys started following me. So,
Wait, the Disco Turkeys?
the Disco Turkeys.
Man, minor league names are just the best.
I love it, right? I told them to send me a hat and I would wear it on the show. They haven't responded to that yet, but I said, send me a hat. I'll definitely wear it.
Yeah, I told Jake Crane the same thing. He's like, send me some swag. I'll wear it on the show.
Yeah. We're having him on Georgia Dogs tomorrow night, I think, if he doesn't back out again.
Yeah, I've had him twice. He's a good interview.
Yeah, I've had him about two or three times.
Yeah.
He's really good. This will be the first time I've had him on the video platform, but yeah, I'm gonna try to get some merch from him. Maybe I can, I don't know, I'll figure out something to get our logo on his show, but get him some merch. I don't have any merch, but if I do, I'd send him some.
Yeah, seriously. I ordered about $200 worth of polos, but that's for me.
Yeah, I'll send him some Hillwood gear. There you go.
Yeah, I know I wear my T-shirts and I dress up real classy like and everything, but I'm trying to go polo and full logo and all that. So some positively Ole Miss and logo gear is going to be shown on camera fairly soon.
Hey, we need to get this logo that's playing right above my head. We need to get that logo on a shirt.
Yeah, we could probably do that. We can find out something like that for SEC After the Dark.
Yeah, like get like a bright colored shirt and just put that on there.
Yeah, it would have to be some kind of neon color.
Obviously.
Something 80s. Like you hear our music. Our music is themed, actually, if you're listening to the show, themed on silk stockings, if you remember that show from the late 80s, early 90s. That's why we picked that music. That's why we picked this logo, and that's kind of what we're going for with SEC After Dark, is that kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like we drink beer on the show, right?
Yeah.
And how loose can it get, right?
Yeah, seriously. You know what? We're gonna call it off right there. We've gone over an hour. I do want to
flies
thank.
when you're having fun.
Yeah, I do want to thank everybody for stopping by and watching the show. Remember, like it, share it, retweet it, do all of that thing on social media. This is social media only platform. We don't have a place that we can send you, but our audience expands whenever you expand it. So do that for us, please. And for Corey, I'm Steve, and we'll see you next week.
Hit the bell, subscribe.